Welcome to English Without Borders webinar series. So we have as a tradition every Thursday at 6 p.m. local time our English Without Borders webinars. And today we are very happy to have our prominent speaker today. Let me introduce Linda Wesley, who is an English language specialist. And today she will introduce a very interesting topic, games and warm-up activities, an underused opportunity for formative assessment. And we are very happy to welcome Linda. Just to tell some information about our speaker, Linda Wesley has MA and has more than 30 years of experience in foreign language education as K-12, adult education, junior college, and university teacher. She is now the owner operator of Linda Teaches English, a private business which provides individual and small group instruction as well as daily Instagram lessons to students around the world. Additionally, she facilitates teacher training courses for English as a second foreign language teachers. In recent years, she has also delivered on-site and virtual teacher training and consulting in Bolivia, the Dominican Republic, El Salvador, Peru, Saudi Arabia, and South Korea. Linda holds an advanced degree in teaching English as a second language from Western Kentucky University in the United States. And today we welcome you, Linda. So happy to see your smiley face. And now we are giving the floor to you. So just to say some words, our audience consists of people who are joining us via Zoom, and also we are on Facebook Live, and they will be asking questions using their chat box. So, dear audience, please use the opportunity to ask your questions to Linda, and we'll pass them over to our speaker. Linda, welcome, and now the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that introduction and also for the invitation to speak to everyone today. This is my honor and pleasure to make this presentation. So let's get started. Can everybody hear okay? All right, wonderful. I am going to share my screen in just a moment. All right, here we go. And like Niso asked, I will put it into presentation mode. Okay, can everyone see the screen? I think those are the most famous words from our pandemic time is, can everyone see the screen? Because we do that so often. Again, like Nasiba introduced, today I will be talking about games and warm-up activities, an underused opportunity for formative assessment. So let's just get started. My introduction, I'm from the United States. And in the United States, I currently live here in this state of Tennessee. Now, there are usually two reasons why someone might know Tennessee. The first one is because of country music. Nashville, Tennessee, the capital, is home of country music, the home of country music. And so if you notice here, I have the guitar and the cowboy boots. We were talking before the presentation that Taylor Swift is somebody that a lot of the young people in your country follow. She started in country music. I don't think she's still country music, but she does still live in Nashville. When you think of some of the older names like Johnny Cash, Dolly Parton, Patsy Cline, or some of the more contemporary names like Brad Paisley, Carrie Underwood, those are all typical names associated with country music. The second reason that a lot of people know Tennessee, they may not realize it, is Tennessee is also home of Jack Daniel's whiskey. So you may have seen this bottle at some time in your life. And notice here it says Tennessee whiskey. So they also make that here in Tennessee. So Tennessee is a beautiful state. We have a lot of different geography. We have the mountains over on the east side, and we have all of this country music in the middle. And then on the west side, if some of you are familiar with Elvis Presley, Elvis was from Memphis, Tennessee. So let's just take a moment and do an introduction of you. I'd like to know more about you. So if you could write the following in the chat: your name, the number of years you have been teaching, and where you are from. And so as an example, I would post in the chat, Linda, 33 years, I'm really old, and I'm from Tennessee in the United States. So if we could just take a few moments, and I'd like to see who everybody is. All right, Natcha from Georgia, 11 years, wow. Kapar, 23 years, you're closer to me. I think maybe we have a few shy people. Natasha, a student, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. Well, maybe as we continue, maybe some more people can add their information in the chat. But even with just 3 people, that already tells me that we have someone with several years of experience, somebody who seems to be new, and then Emmy. Yes, hello, Emmy. A few people in the middle with 11 or 12 years. So that is absolutely fabulous. I love having teachers from across the spectrum and from different places. All right. So let's continue there. And again, please don't hesitate to continue to add those introductions. All right. So first, we want to start out with a definition of formative assessment. You may have already studied this before, but the big definition is formative assessment refers to a wide variety of methods that teachers use to conduct in-process evaluations of student comprehension, learning needs, and academic progress during a lesson, unit, or course. Formative assessments help teachers identify concepts that students are struggling to understand, skills they are having difficulty acquiring, or learning standards they have not yet achieved, so that adjustments can be made to lessons, instructional techniques, and academic support. And this definition was courtesy of the Glossary of Education Reform. You can see down here. That's a lot of information to unpack. So let's take that a little bit farther down and say that, one moment, Nasiba or Niso, can you all see my chat screen? Is my chat screen visible?
So we can see your presentation and your chat screen. It's actually good, all the chats we can see. So
okay, so I'm going to close that. Okay.
All right. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So formative assessment. Formative assessments helps teachers and students identify what students don't understand. When I work with teachers, many teachers understand the concept of formative assessment from the teacher side, but often we forget that formative assessment is also for the students. And with formative assessment, we're able to make sure that teachers can make changes to their teaching. That's one of the main purposes of formative assessment, to let teachers know what is happening, what is not happening, and how they can make changes to their teaching to help their students. But it's also important to remember that with this information, students can make changes to their studying. That is if we share that information with the students. So very important. So let's continue to break down that definition some more and look at formative versus summative assessment. Formative, we've just described as what we use to inform our teaching and to help students know what they're doing. Another way that we can define formative and summative assessment is to compare the two. So if you look over here on the left side, you'll see that formative assessment is ongoing. We're doing formative assessment all the time. When I asked you to write your name and the number of years teaching in the chat, that was a formative assessment for me because that gave me information about the audience. I'm not working with all new teachers and I'm not working with all experienced teachers. I won't call us old. So that was formative assessment that I need to guide my presentation. With formative assessment, you often see things like checklist, progress notes, class discussions, peer evaluations, student to student, self-evaluations, opportunities for students to evaluate themselves. And so this is an opportunity to have learning through feedback and practice. Feedback and practice. Now, these on the formative side are usually not worth points. Or if the teacher is giving points, it's a very small number of points because this is our learning stage. The opposite is summative. And summative is usually at the end. It's most often a paper pencil test at the end of the unit, at the end of a chapter, at the end of a semester. Maybe you have a district test or a national test. We often associate this picture with summative testing. Standardized testing, like we said, by your district or by your country. Reports, projects. And so here, students usually associate that with getting a grade, okay? Getting a grade. But we want to have so many opportunities to give students feedback along the way so that they know how they can change how they're studying or what they're studying. So, whoops, I think I have one of my slides is out of order. And then a final way to look at this is that formative assessment is low stakes or no stakes. Again, it's usually not a grade, or if it is a grade, it's just a few points. On the opposite side, summative assessment is high stakes because these are usually those big, important grades. All right, so today we're going to look at how we can use games and warm-up activities. I know that almost all teachers use games and warm-up activities in their classrooms, but I often find that teachers are using the activities and they're using the games, but they're not mindfully thinking about why they're doing it. They say, yes, I do this game, I do this game, I do this game. And then when I say why, it's sometimes hard to answer. All right, so let's go through this a little bit. What are your favorite games and warm-up activities that you use in your classroom? What are your favorite games and warm-up activities that you use in your classroom? Could you put a few of those in the chat for me? Parallel lines. That's a great one. And you can give me a thumbs up. When you say parallel lines, I do something called fluency lines, where students are talking and then one person moves to the next spot. I think that's another name for the same activity. TPR activities, yes, total physical response. That's a great way to use a game and warm-up activity. Board games. I love board games in the classroom. All right. Anybody else want to share any of your games and warm-up activities? Hokey pokey dance, bingo. Yes, yes. Those are so much fun. Online games, especially this year. I know that many of us are using Kahoot and Quizlet and different games like that. Hangman, yes, yes. So let's go to the next question I have. The first question was a what. Now we have a why. Oh, I see Simon says, wonderful. The why is, do you mindfully use them as formative assessments? In other words, when you play the games with your students or do the warm-up activities with your students, are you taking notes in your mind, or are you taking notes on paper about, when we played Hangman, a lot of my students had trouble pronouncing the letters G and J. Okay. Or when we played Simon Says, many of my students were confused with stand up or sit down. Okay. And so, do you mindfully use them as formative assessments? Now, I've lost my, well, the chat has just come back again. I'm looking at the chat on my iPad and it comes and goes. Could you put a note in there about, do you mindfully use them as formative assessments, or are they just fun? And Nisa or Nasiba, if I don't see anything in the chat now, if you want to tell me any of the responses.
Yes. Could you once again, because Tojudin is saying yes, for sure, as formative assessment.
Yes. And my question, yeah, do you mindfully use them as formative assessment? Like, are you thinking about, what can I do with this, and what can I learn from the students about this? Okay. And then my third question is another why. Do you use this information in your teaching? If so, how? All right, good. I see a note that says, yes, mindfully, we take notes of achievements and challenges. I like that. And then how do you use that information? Do you reteach? Do you work with a small group of students? Do you have mini lessons to go over something again? How do you use that information? Okay, one person says, well, I don't take games so seriously if I just want to set a warm atmosphere. Yes, I think that's great. But I want to challenge you to set a warm atmosphere and get some information about your students. But you're right. Sometimes we can take a few minutes just for the warm atmosphere. Another person says, it depends on my aims. Absolutely. It depends on my goals. Okay. And that's part of the word mindfully here, is, are we really thinking about how we're using it? So thank you so much. Oh, yes. Another person says it helps me adapt the materials. That's wonderful, because sometimes materials work for one group of students, and then we try them with another group of students and they don't work so well. So let's move on from that one to number 4. Do you share this information with your students? And if so, how? How do you share information with your students, either as a group or one-on-one? How do you let students know when they're having trouble with something? And Nasiva, I've lost the chat again. So if you see anything to share.
Okay. Yes, people are writing. I work on problematic topics. Sometimes I use them to lead in the new topic. Yeah, they're sharing like that.
Okay, great, great. That's right. You also have the Facebook. So, and I don't have that visibility. All right. So I just with that wanted to get your mind thinking about those situations and how you use those games and warm-up activities. All right. So I'm going to give you about 4 different kinds of games and warm-up activities that I use. I literally have hundreds that I use, but we don't have time for all of that today. But I just want to show you a few where, like you said, you can set a warm environment. You can get students standing up and moving around, students laughing, and you can create a much more conducive environment for learning while also getting important formative assessment information. So here, I'll give you 4 examples of what. When I talk about what, that means that I'm talking about the activity itself. Line up in alphabetical order by your first name. Now, that is an activity that gets students standing up. They're talking with one another. This is a great activity at the beginning of the semester. But what can I learn about the students academically when we do this activity? Now, Siva can tell me if anybody answers in the chat.
Yes, I'm just tracking. Okay. So somebody says like no ABCs.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. You know, students think they know the ABCs. And then often when I do this activity, even with adults, they realize, oh, is M before N? Or because that elemento, ooh, let me stop and think. So that's an important thing to find out, do they know their ABCs in order? Another what activity? Line up in order of your birthdays, January 1st to December 31st. What can we learn about the students there? In addition to learning their birthdays.
Yeah, they learn about months, about seasons.
Yes, they can learn the months. They can learn, but we can learn, do they know the months? Do they know the months? But this is in a really low stakes environment. They're laughing, they're having fun. It's really fun when you do it when they can't speak either. That's another side activity. Another what? Gather together by your favorite sport. All right, that's a great way to learn vocabulary. We'll talk about this one more. Another what? Gather together with people who have the same eye color as you. All right, that's a great way to have students looking in each other's eyes and creating that warm environment. So let's look at just the favorite sport for just a moment. I like to use the activity 4 corners. You may be familiar, where you set up the 4 corners of your classroom. I'm not able to do that today. If I were there with you, we would. But I tried to create it on the screen. In my 4 corners, I would have a picture of a volleyball, a soccer ball, where I think you say football, cricket, is it a cricket ball and paddle, and boxing. And I would ask the students to move to those 4 corners. And then once they do that, they learn something about each other. But I can also start asking some questions to do formative assessment. Whoops, I went to the wrong screen. My apologies. Sophia, what is your favorite sport? Muhammad, what is Sophia's favorite sport? Now, again, notice over here, I did not include the word. I just included a picture of the word, okay? And so it's a great way to check their vocabulary. Olga, how many people say cricket is their favorite sport? But again, the students are up and moving. It's a great way to see if Olga knows her numbers. Aziz, what is the most popular sport in our class? Aziz can look and do some counting and report on that. Svetlana, which sport is more popular in our class, volleyball or boxing? So we're working on both listening and speaking here. You can also go to some higher order thinking skills, things like Saeed. Why do you think Sophia's favorite sport is volleyball? All right. He can't just look and give that answer. He has to go to a higher order thinking skill in order to answer that. Or something like, Asisa, do you think our classroom poll reflects our country's favorite sports? Why? Or Karim, which of these sports is the most dangerous? Why? So you can start here at number 1 with a very, very beginner question, but you can take it up through more advanced levels and higher order thinking. All right. And so that is one way that I use a lineup or a gather together. But after each of these activities, I always want you to think about that question, why? My big why right here. What kind of formative assessment can you do with this activity? We just talked about that. We can check their sports vocabulary. We can check their numbers vocabulary. We can check some of their higher order, what do you think and why, vocabulary and grammar. There's so many things. How can you use this information in your teaching? If you find out that everybody's having trouble remembering the word cricket, then that's something you know you can review. But finally, the third question, how can you share this information with your students? The students need this information along the way before they get to that big summative test, exam, or project. All right. So these are the 3 questions you always want to ask yourself with a game or activity. I see a note here. It is also a great team building for a group. Absolutely. And you've probably had some presentations about team building and community building. And we often do community building maybe the first few days of class, but I encourage you to continue to do community building throughout the semester and throughout the year. I learned that this year, teaching on Zoom, community building was more important than ever because so many students felt isolated and alone. So we did a lot of community building while working on our grammar and vocabulary. Here's another game I love, and I wish I could play it with you. I call this yes, no, oh no. All right. In the classroom, we would do take 2 pieces of candy. I would give each student 2 pieces of candy or 2 tokens or something, and then ask them to circulate around the room and ask your classmates questions. Okay. And then number 3, if the classmate, here I said colleague, if the colleague responds yes or no, they must give you 1 piece of candy. So the goal of this game is to avoid saying yes or no. And the goal is to get as much candy as you can. If you need a break in your classroom and want to get the students laughing and having a good time and moving physically around, this is one of the best games for this. I think this one produces the most laughter, which all of those things are great. You want students moving, you want students moving around the classroom, talking and laughing. But let's go to our 3 questions. What kinds of formative assessment can you do with this activity? I'll look in the chat for a moment. And Nasiba, if you see any others, you can share them with me.
So somebody's saying like checking leadership skills, and it's also a great team for building a group.
Yep.
And some other people are writing it's also good, for checking some tenses, or verb
Yes.
tenses. Yeah. And okay.
And a great one for this one is checking question word order, because we all know that questions have a different kind of word order. Do you have children? How many children do you have? Different things like that. And so the goal is to get them asking so many questions. Again, your second question, how can you use that information? Wow, I heard all of my students saying, you do have children? Oh, we still need to work on question order. Or maybe my students are saying, or are you have children? Oh, we need to work on the be verb or the do verb. Anything like that is important information that you need about what you need to reteach, provide mini lessons about, give private feedback to, however you use that. And again, that's sharing the information with your students. When I work with teachers and they say, yeah, we do this game or we do this activity or they do this homework, I often say, how do the students know if they got it right or wrong? And the teacher says, oh, I don't know. And I always tell them, if the students don't know if what they did is correct or incorrect, it's not helpful to the students. And they need multiple opportunities for feedback in order to be ready for that big summative assessment at the end. Let's look at another great activity, find your match. Now, you can do this with 2 sets of cards. Make 2 sets of cards. One set has sentences with a blank, and the other set has different colors. Give 1 card to each student. Some students receive just a color card. Some students receive a sentence card. Ask students to move around the room to find their match. Now, yes, of course, we almost always have matching in our textbooks, but that can be really, really boring. All right. We can take that same activity from the textbook and make it something where students can move around and talk and interact. And so here I just gave an example of let's say that my students have learned colors, but it's time to review them. We did colors earlier in the year, but I want to review. But recently we did weather and fruit. All right. And so I want to mix these together in a review. And so again, 5 of the students would receive a card with a color, and 5 of the students would receive a card with a sentence. Then they can move around the room and find their match. All right. And then that way you're able to check, do they really know their colors? Because a lot of students think, I can say yellow, white, red, blue, gray, blue. Whoops, I have 2 blues. Don't tell anybody. A lot of students think that they know that because they can say the word. But then when I ask something like, what color is my phone? They stop for a moment. They know how to read the word, but they don't know how to grab the word in their own vocabulary. And so again, this is a great way to check reading. Here's an example, strawberries and cherries are, and when I look over here, strawberries and cherries would walk around the room and try to find red, and red would walk around the room looking for strawberries and cherries. Okay, so this is another great way to do that. And you can do this online. If you're still teaching online, if I escape this for just a moment, you can see that these can move to different places. And so also be thinking about how you can adapt this for your online classroom. Let me go back to presentation mode. Again, ask yourself the 3 questions. What kind of formative assessment can you do? How can you use this information in your teaching? And the third one, which we so often forget, is how can you share this information with the students? For me personally, I often do a mini lesson at the end. When I say mini, I mean M-I-N-I, not M-A-N-Y, meaning just a small lesson saying, you guys did great with that activity, but I noticed that some of you were struggling with the pronunciation of some of the fruit vocabulary. So let's do a quick review of that vocabulary. And at the same time, I can say, but the weather vocabulary you did great with. You've been studying, and I think you're ready for that test. And a final one here, draw it. This is a great one that we can use in the classroom or online. And I'm hoping I have a few people who can participate now. In Draw It, you ask them to draw the items as you hear and or read them described. Then share your picture. So does everybody have a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil? And maybe we can turn on our cameras for just a moment. Okay, I am going to show you the directions, and then we're going to share our pictures. Now with Draw It, you have to think about ahead of time. What is my goal? Is my goal just listening, or is my goal listening and reading together, or is my goal just reading? All right. So today I will put listening and reading together. So here's your job. Number 1, draw a large square on your paper. Draw a large square on your paper. I hope everybody is doing this. Number 2, inside the square, draw a sun. Under the square, draw a cloud. To the left of the square, draw a raindrop. Above the square, draw a snowflake. And to the right of the square, draw a moon. So those are the 6. Do I have any brave people who will turn on your camera and share your picture? Let me see those pictures. Yes, yes. We have such artistic people today. We also have some shy people who don't want to show their pictures. Nice job, Sitora. I see yours. Mary, Firdavs. Oh, these are wonderful. Thank you so much. Oh, Nasiba, very nice. Well, yesterday I asked my husband to do this, and let's see. I have to get back in here. This was my husband's picture. So here, oh, hi, we have a young teacher, a very, very young teacher. So here is the square with a sun, a snowflake, a moon, a raindrop, and a cloud. So, you know, that's fun. It makes us smile. It's something different. But let's go back to our 3 questions. What kinds of formative assessment can you do with this? Can anybody put that in the chat? what are the 2 or 3 things, the 2 or 3 vocabulary items that we were studying? I'll go back. When you look at these directions, oh yes, prepositions and shapes. That's it. Prepositions and shapes and direction. Absolutely. Improving listening skills, shapes. I love it. Yes. So you can be very, very focused on that. Now, of course, you want to be careful. You want this to be something where people do not have to be artistic, but this is one of my favorite ways to practice prepositions. Prepositions, all right? Because if you're studying animal vocabulary, you could say draw a square, put the dog in the middle, the cat on the left, whatever, but you got it. Shapes, prepositions, directions, all those things. And then at the end, when I'm in a classroom, I often have them do it on just a Post-it note. And then we put all of the sticky notes on the wall so that they can compare. And that's another activity when they use the language of comparing. All right. So I think that's perfect time. Great. We're about ready for the conclusion. And what I want you to leave here today with is it's so easy to gather and collect many whats. What is a 4 corners game of our favorite sport? What is the yes, no, oh no game where we circulate with the candy? What is find your match with the 2 sets of cards? What is draw it, which we just did? All right. What is the hundreds, if not thousands of games that you have that you use in your classroom? So all of these are wonderful. What? But put it in the chat right now. But what is the biggest question? What is the big yellow ball? Not just what, but I want to see somebody type that 3-letter word in the chat. I'm waiting. In addition to asking what is
Why?
the other?
People are asking
Yes,
why.
why? That's the question I want you to think. When you go to your classroom, what is today? Thursday. When you go to your classroom tomorrow or Monday and you do a wonderful game or warm-up activity, I want you to ask that question, why? Why am I doing this? How can it help my teaching? And what is that third question? That third question is, how do I share that information with the students? Because when the students see you connect the what, and the why together, they have a lot of respect for you. They will follow you. They will believe in you because they know that you are helping them get whatever their goal is. And sometimes that big goal is that summative test. All right. We said I had about 40 to 43 minutes, so I will share with you my contact information, and then we'll open it up for question and answer. Again, my name is Linda Wesley, and you can reach me at email lindawesley16@gmail.com. You can also reach me at Instagram, Linda Teaches English, one word. There's a daily lesson there, and you can send me direct messages anytime. If you are on LinkedIn, I'm Linda Wesley, and coming soon, I hope, fingers crossed, coming soon, we'll have Linda Teaches English on YouTube. Right now, the best place to find me is Instagram. Okay, I am ready for any kinds of questions and answers. Well, I'm ready for your questions, and I will try to give you great answers.
Yeah, thank you very much, Linda. Like, people are sharing their kind of words of gratitude in the chat box, saying that your
Oh,
presentation was so interesting. And we definitely wish you, best luck with going on YouTube channel, and also just, making your channel big success. So yeah, wishing you good luck and
thank
keeping
you.
our fingers crossed for you as well. Thank you.
But right now you
Okay.
can easily find me on Instagram. That's the
Yeah.
easiest way.
Yeah, and definitely, yes, people will be watching you on Facebook via English Without Borders as well. So
Oh
it's kind of,
yeah.
yeah, so many people are joining, and then, the recording will be available on Facebook, and people will be, watching them over and over. If they miss today's webinar, it's okay, no worries about that. And Linda, we have a number of questions for you.
Great.
People are just, let me read them loud to you. So, the first one is, how much time is the best amount to spend on games?
Oh, that's a great question. So much of that depends on your environment, how long a class is. I know some teachers only have 30-minute classes. Some teachers have 2-hour classes. And so when I always ask my students at the end of the semester, at the end of the term about that. And most of them say they don't want to spend a long time in one class on a game because they start to get bored. Most of them say they prefer maybe 5 or 10-minute games that move very, very quickly. And if you have a longer class, maybe you could do a warm-up game at the beginning. And then in the middle, when students are getting bored and tired, that's a great time to have another game. Again, 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes, that seems to be a really nice spot for that, where nobody's getting bored. Everybody is staying active for those short periods of time.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we have more questions. One of the participants is asking, what do you think is the problem of making questions for students is the lack of games?
So the problem of making questions for
Questions for
students.
students.
I'm not sure
Yeah,
what
can
that
be that.
means.
Yeah, maybe she's asking, like, lack of games. So, in many cases, like whenever you ask a question to students, they are not so kind of reluctant to, and probably, like, because of the lack of games. What do you think?
Okay, that's a great one. Has Laura Holland already spoken to this group?
No, not yet.
I
No,
think Laura
because
Holland will be presenting. She's a former colleague of mine. And one of the activities that she and I both love is something called Think, Pair, Share. Is everybody familiar with Think, Pair, Share? Let me describe that. For this situation, it's great because in classrooms all over the world, we have the same 2 or 3 students who want to answer every question. And then the other students who don't want to answer the question or are afraid or don't feel comfortable. And so with Think, Pair, Share, when you ask a question, you don't accept answers immediately. You ask the students to first think for maybe 15, 20, 30 seconds. Quietly, just think. Then they turn to one partner. So that's the think and then the pair. In a pair, the 2 of them share their answers with one another and discuss it. And that is much more comfortable for the shyer students or the more reluctant students because they're only talking to one person. And then after they work together, number 3 is share. And so now the less confident student feels more comfortable sharing a response because he or she has already had the opportunity to think for a few moments and to talk to somebody else quietly about it. Think, pair, share is one of the best ways for that to happen. And in my experience, when I started using Think, Pair, Share, I found that many of my students became more confident in things like games. But you can incorporate the Think, Pair, Share into the game too.
Yeah, great. It's great. Like, yeah, I think the teachers just rub them down, whatever you said, and they will be trying it out.
I will,
Yeah.
if I send you some information, would you be able to share it with the group?
Yeah, exactly. Like any resources that you think that would be helpful for teachers, you can share with us, because
Okay.
right after the webinar, we will post your presentation as well as your
Okay.
handouts on our website for easy access of teachers, and also like
Great.
members of the English Without Borders to to easy download.
I've added it to my list.
Yes, all right, good. So another question Tajudeen is asking, is there any official EFL game resources available online that you could share with us?
There are not, I don't know that there are official ones, but there are so many websites that have some great ideas. I will definitely share a few of my favorite ones. Is that okay? Yeah, there are a few. I have them in my bookmarks, but I will share them with you, and then you can pass that along. So websites for games. And one thing you have to remember too is, in my experience of teaching, for example, I worked in one school where the principal, the leader of the school, supported the noise that we made in the classroom, because he felt like noise and talking and laughing equaled learning. I worked in another school where the leader thought that all students should be quiet all the time. So that's another thing you have to think about with games, is what kind of school or institution you're working in. But there are ways to adapt games so that you can still do them maybe quieter, or sometimes if you have the opportunity to go outside and play the game. I don't know what the restrictions are. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Thank you. That would be really great,
Yeah.
And we have a question from Tojiniso. She's
Okay.
asking, what do you think about the idea of giving students the opportunity to do a warm-up game from time to time?
I almost demand it. Do you mean for the students to create their own, or just, oh, okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
For the
yeah.
students to create their own, I have tried that successfully once or twice and not successfully. What I realized is, if students were going to create the games, I needed to establish some criteria first. Okay. The first time I did it as a young teacher, a young, naive teacher, it was a disaster because there weren't any parameters. There wasn't a rubric or anything. And so everybody got frustrated. And after that, I started establishing some parameters, a rubric, a guide. Okay, here's the vocabulary you can use. Here's the tools, the resources you can use. And what I learned is, when I made it smaller, they learned more, because they had to work on a particular kind of, or excuse me, a particular set of vocabulary, or a limited amount of grammar, simple present, or something like that. And so, yes, it can be very successful, but I do think it needs some organization on the part of the teacher first. These are great questions.
Yeah,
I love
thank
these
you.
questions.
Yeah, we have a couple of more questions.
Okay, great.
Nurali, he's asking, when is the best time to do the warm-ups that you shared with us, in the beginning or at the end of the class?
In my experience, personally, I like to do some kind of warm up at the beginning of class, but those are usually about 3 minutes. Okay, those are really quick, and because I need to get that class started while I have their biggest attention. So I would usually use that as like a 3 or a 4 minute warm up. Then for a more extended game, I usually go for about 70, at about the 75% mark. Not quite at the middle, but not at the end, because at the end, I need to grab everybody back together. I need to bring their attention back to my screen so that we can talk about what we did today, even the game. I encourage you to never do a game without talking about it at the end. At the end, what did you do well with today? What did you struggle with? Again, it was a game, but you want to give students that self-evaluation time that we talked about. Another thing that I use, and again, you can just use little pieces of paper, is when I'm teaching in a traditional classroom, I have an exit ticket. And there's 3 questions, what went well today? What is still confusing? Sometimes it's just 2 questions or 3 questions. And I heard Laura Holland the other day suggest another question, which I love, and I'm stealing from her. I'm just stealing it, but I'm giving her credit. Her 3rd question is, what from today can you teach another student? What are you ready to teach? And that goes hand in hand with my philosophy, because I tell students, you should be ready to teach it. When you really understand it, you can teach it, you can explain it. And so that's something I often do in my class too, is I tell the students, okay, I'm the student now, and you're the teacher. And I'm going to ask why. And it's amazing what a good job those students can do. And they're so proud when they realize, I can teach this. I have enough information and enough understanding that I can teach that. So yeah, the exit tickets are great for that. If you're still teaching online, I also do exit tickets online as a private chat. I ask the students to send me a private message with that information. And then when I see it and read it, then I say goodbye to them for the day, and they can leave, but they can't leave. Just like the traditional classroom, they can't leave the classroom until I have that exit ticket, because I want them to come back and think about what happened in the class today. And I want them to leave knowing, what do I know well? What do I still need to work on? And hopefully those games and warm-up activities were part of the formative assessments that give them that information.
Yeah, excellent. Very insightful tips you shared. Thanks, Linda. And
Thank
we have
you.
another question. She's asking, what can I do when some of the students are not able to participate in warm-ups and games, I assume? So what would you recommend?
So when you say unable, because of their level, or they just don't want to?
I think she says, like, in some classes, they may be like, multi-level students. That probably, could be a case
right.
In her question.
In my classes, no matter how many levels I have, I think it's my job to make every student feel success every day. And so sometimes in my games and activities, there may be some easier questions that maybe my lower students get those questions, I may adapt the game a little bit, or I may put them on teams and make them a part of that think, pair, share. That is a great way to involve those lower students, is because they're able to think and then work with some partners who are maybe at a little higher level, but then I can ask that student to share. So I think that's one of my jobs, is to really, really know my students and know their levels, so that when I ask questions, I have a strong idea of who can do it and who may need a little bit of support. And making them part of a team environment can be really helpful for that. But again, I want to say that again, I want all of my students to leave class every day feeling like they had success, not on everything, maybe, but at least a few times they had success. In my classes, we celebrate success. And I think that's really important, because especially in the online environment or in our big traditional classrooms, it's easy for some students to kind of disappear. And so I want to make sure we do that. I noticed the other day on Canvas, the online environment, Canvas has added something that when you submit an assignment, it throws confetti. So, so again, we're looking for success. But yeah, it's how can you give the students that opportunity for success?
Yeah, thank you very much, Linda, for such interesting webinar and your presentation. So tons of thanks. And let me remind our audience that today we had the webinar, English Without Borders webinar, with Linda Wesley, who is an English language specialist with extensive teaching experience. And she has been helping to so many countries, including Tajikistan, with English Without Borders, and sharing her experience.
My first time.
Today. Yes, and we will recognize it as well. Yeah, putting everywhere that it's your first experience with Central Asia, particularly with Tajikistan. Thanks a lot.
And I will be back June 24th.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. On June 24th, we are expecting you with your second webinar, because we really want you to get bit of your teaching every time, and also, like, to make it something very like such a good drive for teachers, to progress, and also to make their teaching fun and interesting as well.
Thank you.
So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Linda.